tefillah being prayer. But this Torah portion really gets into this idea of the Mishkan, of the portable sanctuary. And there's a line that says, well, we'll look at it in a minute. We'll look at it. I might as well forget it. We'll just go straight to it and look at it. It opens, this week's Torah portion begins with, Adonai spoke to Moses saying, tell the Israelite people to bring me gifts. You shall accept gifts for me from every person whose heart is so moved. And these are the gifts that you shall accept from them: gold, silver, and copper, blue, purple, and crimson yarns, fine linen, goat's hair, tanned ram skins, dolphin skins, and acacia wood, oil for lighting, spices for the anointing oil and for the aromatic incense, lapis lazuli, and other stones for setting, for the ephod and for the breastpiece. And let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. Exactly as I show you the pattern of the tabernacle and the pattern of all its furnishings, so shall you make. Okay, this is the beginning of the Torah portion. And that line, make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among you, is the line that is actually on the cover page for our prayer book. And is a pretty famous line that comes from this week's Torah portion about the importance and centrality of building a sanctuary, and there are many ways in which we can define that. In this case, in the Torah portion, of course, it's a physical sanctuary, and so we're gonna delve into that a little, and more though focus on this concept of giving and tzedakah, since that's a major theme in this week's Torah portion. But before we get to that, Cindy.
I always find this paragraph interesting, that these former slaves are expected to have all these jewels. They're in the middle of the desert, and yet they can get dolphin skins, and they're just expected to have all these spices. And it's just, I don't know, it just always fascinated me that these slaves would have all these items.
Yes, you're right. It just goes to show just how creative we can be as the Jewish people were able to get whatever they needed. No, I mean, there are a couple of different interpretations for this. One is that there's a passage earlier on in the book of Exodus that when the Israelites fled Egypt, that they took gold and they took treasures with them, either that were given to them specifically by the Egyptians or that they took from the Egyptians. And so some would suggest that these are based on the things that they had taken from Egypt or that they had collected along the way, or the things that they had just brought with them and smuggled out of Egypt. So that's one way of looking at it. Another is we don't really know where they got all of these things, and that it probably isn't so much the focus of what the Torah seems, at least my perspective, is not what the Torah is really trying to have us focus on, is not literally, again, if we go back to recognizing that the Torah is not supposed to be read as a historic document, and that it's not necessarily supposed to be read literally, that really what this Torah portion is getting at is less about how they actually went about making the tabernacle, because they made something beautiful, but it's the concept, at least for me, that I like to focus on, is this line from verse 2 and then again at verse 8. The things in between, those details and how they came about getting those things, it's a great question. There really is no answer. There's no answer really given in the Torah. The rabbis don't know the answer. There's no historic answer to it. And so for me personally, it's a great question, Cindy, and we don't know. That's the easiest answer. And I actually think the Torah is more focused on this idea that the Israelites were willing and able, whose hearts are so moved, to actually bring, to me, this is basically them saying, the Torah saying, things that are valuable, that at a time where the Israelites are in the middle of nowhere, where they would potentially be inclined to hold on to the most valuable things for themselves, in a time where they have nothing for themselves. Why would you let go of the things that are most valuable? Why wouldn't you not hold on to them with all your heart and with all your soul to make sure no one else gets them? At that very moment, they are willing to actually give up those things of value in order to help benefit the entire community. So that's kind of how I read it. Eric Shavitz.
Yeah, I just lowered my hand, but really, I was just gonna kind of jump on that. It's, and for me, it was always less about what they're actually bringing and more of the idea that everybody has to contribute something, meaning that everybody is connected. Everybody has given something to this place. They've given of themselves. They've sacrificed whatever it is. They by buying into it, so to speak, they're showing that they have buy-in, that they're interested in being part of this relationship.
Great. Love that. Any thoughts on why it says, if you look at the line again, it could have just said, tell the Israelite people to make me gifts. You shall accept gifts for me from every person. Could have just ended there. Why the inclusion, whose heart is so moved? Thoughts on why that's included. God has no problem in other points in the Torah being very clear and direct with what God wants from us. This changes that a little. This is a slight shift from "you shall bring me gifts" and adds a little element that I'm curious how people see that added element and what it's supposed to be teaching us. Cindy.
If he expected it from everyone, it would be more like a tax. If he says, if you're so moved, then it's more a gift from the heart.
Great. Love that. Merle, did you want to add on to that?
I was just going to say it's about whatever you are so moved to give. And whereas there's a lot of different kinds of gifts that you can give to your community, and it's whatever you're capable of giving. I mean, not everybody can give a lot.
Right.
So whatever you spend I mean, I used to professionally was doing volunteer management and teaching, and some people couldn't do money, but they could certainly give time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's equally as important to me as, I wish I could do more money, but I can't always.
Thanks, Merle. Brad?
Yeah, I'm intrigued by a few things about the DD's need gifts. An odd concept to me.
You're breaking up a little,
in primitive cultures.
Brad, hold on. You're breaking up again. Can you start again?
Okay. I'm puzzled. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Rabbi?
Yeah. Yes, and no.
Hello?
A little.
Okay. Let me try again. I'm puzzled by a deity that needs gifts, first of all. And then in primitive cultures, it was part of the exchange process. The gifts weren't done out of the goodness of one's heart, but there was a reciprocality to it. I gave to you, and you gave back to me. So is there a gift exchange going on?
Okay, great. I think so. What I heard, two things. One, why you're troubled, not troubled, but you have questions about why is God asking for gifts in the first place, and is this a gift exchange? Is there reciprocity associated with if you give me these gifts, this is what you're going to get in return? That seems to be Eric Mankin. You wanted to?
Yeah, I just was going to say that this reminded me of my mailbox, both physical and email and text, which just about every text, email, or piece of letter is a fundraising something from somewhere that I support. I mean, just send $5, send $10, send 15. If you send 25, it's terrifying. So, but goodness, maybe God has gone digital.
Yes. Right. Okay. So we'll get to the fundraising and the modern versions of that and the asks definitely soon, because that's part of it. To Brad's questions, I think yes, it's interesting to think that God needs gifts from the people, and it goes back to, I think, this idea that the relationship that God has with the Jewish people is really important. And that when you think about this idea of a covenant, which is supposed to be this two-way relationship, different than a contract even per se, the language of a brit is that there is this kind of relationship, and it's as though God is maybe God is looking for some buy-in, some skin in the game from these people who God has saved. And it's also though that added part of whose hearts are so moved gives people an out. They don't actually need to give. This is not a demand that every single person give. It says anyone who actually wants to be a part of this has the opportunity to participate. And here are the many things that you can give if you want to participate, but you're not required to participate. Going back to, I think what Cindy said, the tax versus some kind of participation. This really opens that door to say, I'm offering you an opportunity, Israelite people. I'm giving you the chance to help build something where you can have an intimate relationship with me. If you want to help opt into that, if you want to create a space that is beautiful, that is intimate, that is special, unique, unlike anything you have ever seen before, a place where you are going to be able to connect with me in a way that you haven't been able to for hundreds of years because you were enslaved. And now I want to give you that opportunity to have a more intimate connection with me, and not just Moses. I want to give all of you that opportunity. So if you want that opportunity, here you go. Here are the things that we need and that I need you to help bring together in order for us to build this special place. So if your heart so moves you and you want to participate, here are the things that we're going to need. And then I'm going to lay out for you all the details of what it's going to take to build this special place. And then I will dwell among you in that special place. I don't need it. Maybe God's saying, I'm good. I'm still here. I'm everywhere. But if you want to have an even closer, special relationship with me, I want us to build this together, because I'm not going to build it for you, basically. So maybe that's one way of looking at it. Rebecca, then Anne, then Susan.
I think that the use of the jewels and the special skins is to allow for more value to the building of the tabernacle, because if the tabernacle was just built out of driftwood and brush and leaves, would it have that same kind of sanctimonious feeling to it? And something that I wrote from last year, that the tabernacle was built to give us a visible aspect to God, because so far right now he's just been in the clouds and in a flame of fire, and the wood and the jewels and everything is kind of a grounding kind of aspect to it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even though we don't believe in idols and idol worship, it's the second commandment, there is something valuable about having tangible ways of connecting to something bigger. And so this is another way in which our tradition seems to be suggesting, yes, you can pray to God, you can connect to God anywhere in the entire world. You don't need a specific place. However, there are special places that you can create where you can be transported into a different frame of mind. And we know that when that's the whole purpose of the sanctuaries that we build in modern day synagogues, especially ours, but that there is a transformational process that can happen when we shift our physical space. And that can lend itself to us connecting in a different way and feeling closer. And so that, to Rebecca's point, maybe this is also just a way in which we can ground that connection in the physical world in an important way. So Anne, Susan, Penina, then Eric, and then Aviva. You're muted, Anne.
I don't know why we can't all get that straight, or I can't all get that straight the first round. When I first read this, I felt that I was reading something that was very transactional. If you do this, then you get entry. Then I decided, no, that's too harsh. Maybe this is all just metaphorical. Bring whatever you can bring and just be there. So then I kind of ended up with the whole notion of doing something with a full heart. That to me was the most significant part. And then I felt comfortable with the reading. Just a different way for me to look at it.
And what was it about that last piece about the full heart that made you feel comfortable? Can you elaborate a little bit more about what changes the whole passage for you with that addition?
because I don't, and I think, and I guess Merle was referring to this earlier, I don't feel that there should have to be a price of admission other than a passion for inclusion. And so I felt more comfortable with the notion of just come and be here in this sacred place with your full heart. So it made me feel more comfortable.
And I want to just push you, Anne, which is we live in a world where we do have to either spend money or create obligatory elements in order to opt in to certain things. So are you suggesting that anytime, is there a difference between this and other times where we have to literally either fork up money or commitment in order to really show our commitment to something? Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like there are, how do you reconcile those two things? Because one could argue, well, of course it's, if God is supposed to know that we're serious, we have to have some skin in the game. We have to be obligated to really put some of our value into this and invest in it in order for it can't just be that we hope it to be nice, that we have to be invested in it. How would you differentiate those two, or how do you reconcile those two?
Well, for me, I do believe that there is that it's a tiering scale, and that is not, in my mind, comfortable for me. I recognize that there are ways that people choose to give to get in and to play. But in the world of which I hope that this is all about, which is the spirit, the soulful world, I guess I don't want that to only be something that excludes people. And so that's where I'm coming from. It's more of a general statement about how we live today, and recognizing some of the obligations that we have and some of the ways that we've been trained or ways that we've been living. And I say, yeah, but if somebody, and I guess this goes back to Merle, if somebody can come and can invest and give and do whatever he or she can do in a way that's not as tangible, but is equally as metaphorical, that to me is the giving of a full heart.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Susan, then Penina, then Eric, then Aviva.
So I was looking at our Chaim, and they say that Teruma, a gift offering comes from the meaning elevate. Did we go into that? To elevate, it elevates the soul. And I'm thinking, what Eric said about all the emails he's getting. Well, I welcomed those emails because it gave me a chance to participate in a cause that I was interested in, mainly the emails helping Israel. So I didn't go over there, which is one way one could do it, you know. But then the other way, it gave me a feeling of participating, a feeling that I don't have total control, a feeling of thankfulness to the Jewish groups that are doing this for me. So I think there's several levels that one could talk about with contributing. It elevates your own soul. It gives you a purpose. It allies you with other like-minded people. And you're building something. I think there's a lot to be said in this portion of gift giving. And it's not giving to an exclusive country club, for goodness sakes. You know, that's not it. And I agree with Merle, there are other ways of giving too, is volunteering. And I think that does elevate the spirit. And I think that's part of this whole reason for, part of the rationale for some of this Parshat.
Great, thank you. Yes, we are elevated when we participate in something bigger than just ourselves, right? It's another example of what happens to our souls and our hearts when we find a way, whatever way that may work for us, to participate in something. We are elevated. We're connected to something much bigger than ourselves. Thank you, Susan. Penina, then Eric, then Aviva.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so we have to remember only 70 people came down to Egypt. That was Jacob's family. That's it. They came out 600,000. They had all these people that weren't even Hebrews that chose to join them, that they were called Erev Rav. So, number one, having all the jewels and stuff, yes, part of it was given them by Pharaoh, that they weren't thieves. Second, all these people that chose to go with them took whatever it is that they wanted to take. It wasn't specific of who gave exactly how much when they did give and how, and whatever. So, second, the word Hebrew means caravaneers, people who are dealing with commercial caravans. They were, that's the name Hebrew, that's what it means. It means donkey or camel leaders and caravan leaders. Knowing that there were other nations in the desert, we do know that because they were engaged in wars in the desert with other people that they encountered on the way. So, so again, excuse me. So again, to know where all this stuff is coming from, it's out of the I would say target right now. I don't like if questions. I always look at what was going on there. It's
Great.
not an
Thank
if
you.
thing.
All right.
Now,
well, I want to get to
number
other
three, we know that they
come
were,
back.
like I said, they were engaged in wars. And a lot of the places that are mentioned in the Bible, excuse me, a lot of places are trading stations.
Thank you.
Trading stations.
Thank you.
Okay,
all right,
so
we'll
now
come
we
back to you
take
later.
it from there. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Eric, then Aviva, then Brad.
Thanks. I'm just gonna make it real quick. I used to have a lot of problems with this parsha for a lot of the reasons that you were all talking about. Why does God need this big elaborate thing? Why do we need to pay for it? And then I started looking at the actual words that are used. What are the verbiage that is being used? So we call this a sanctuary, a holy place, and so it turned into not just a place where God is going to be and we can go meet with God, but a sanctuary, a place of refuge, a place where you can escape from the everyday struggles, a place where you can find that inner peace. Additionally, this is really the first kind of positive community building activity that the Israelites are engaging in. I mean, besides crossing the Dead Sea or the Red Sea and slavery and all that, but this is really the first good thing that has happened to the Israelite people. And there's a place and a elaborate, gem-filled, beautiful place to kind of celebrate that. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Amazing. Thank you. Great points. Aviva. You're muted.
So I have a totally different take. The last time that they were together and they built the golden calf, right? And, you know, again, they gave their jewelry and they built this. And I think God learned from that opportunity that he should be in charge, not let the people among themselves decide what to do. So he gives them a very specific task to work together and, you know, build that community, because they didn't know what to do. When they were asked for their goal to build the golden calf, they did it. And here he is in charge and he's going to show them, if you are to contribute, it's to a bigger cause, not in order to venerate other gods.
Great. That's a great point. Technically, we haven't gotten to the golden calf yet, but the rabbis do argue that maybe they bring this Torah portion first and talk about the Mishkan and the tabernacle to kind of be the precursor to the golden calf, which is coming soon.
Except nothing, it's not linear. You know, the stories are not linear.
Right, I understand, but if you're reading through, you haven't gotten, if you're reading through the Torah, you haven't gotten to the golden calf.
But if you read it, but
Right.
you've gone through it, and you know it's not linear. I don't
I'm
know.
not disagreeing with you. I'm just bringing up that other.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, of course, but
yeah, great. It's a great point. Yeah. What
but
you're
it's
also
worse
talking-
then. If he was able to bring them together and then they drop him and build the golden calf, it's terrible.
Yep. Right. And what you're also bringing up is this, the importance of leadership and guidance, right? When they were left to themselves without a vision for the future and of what the purpose was for the Mishkan, with the golden calf, there really was no leadership or guidance or vision about what that was going to be. But here, a very different, what becomes sustainable and foundational for the Jewish people is that which is both everyone opts into it with their hearts and with the things that of value, and when there's an idea of how it's going to support the entire community, right? You need those two pieces, and you need the guidance of leadership in order to bring it to fruition. Thank you. Thanks, Aviva. Brad, you had your hand up earlier.
Yeah. Can you hear me now, Rabbi?
Yes.
Okay. The philosopher Marcel Mauss, M-A-U-S, has studied gifts and in various civilizations. And the conclusion is that there's no such thing as detached generosity in gift giving. Gift giving, what happens when you give a gift is that it obliges the recipient to return in some way. So you enter into a series of mutual obligations to each other, which is no different than the covenant. That's exactly what the covenant does. So gift giving is just an additional expression of our covenantal relationship with God. And there's nothing bad or ugly about that. And demeaning. It's the nature of the gift.
Wonderful. Thank you. I love that. And again, also that idea of obligation, which is a key piece of the Jewish experience of our obligations, something that as liberal Jews who are not necessarily bound by mitzvot in their daily lives the same way, that's one of the challenges of liberal progressive Judaism is how do we maintain the sense of obligation for people who are not necessarily living a completely halachic life, because obligation and commitment is such a key piece of the Jewish experience, as you just said, even with this gift giving and the building of the sanctuary. Okay, thank you. I love all of these thoughts as always. I want us to look, we've gotten through part one of many parts, but we'll see how far we get with some of this. I want us to go through the 8 levels of tzedakah. You probably have seen this before, but I want us, this Maimonides, let us look again at the 8 levels, just as a reminder and a refresher, since they are used kind of regularly to talk about, and for us to think even individually, the ways in which we give tzedakah. Tzedakah, again, it's not charity per se. It really is, it comes from the root tzedek, which is justice. And it's this idea of how by giving of ourselves, giving our resources, we should be working towards a more just society. How are we bringing about more justice into the world through supporting things that need to be built or maintained? Many different ways of understanding why we give tzedakah, but so here are the 8 levels. The 8 levels of tzedakah, each one greater than the other. The greatest level, like always starting at the top, and then they will diminish from here. The greatest level, higher than all of the rest, is to fortify a fellow Jew and give him a gift, a loan, form with him a partnership, or find work for him until he is strong enough so that he does not need to ask others for sustenance. Of this it is said, if your kinsman being in straits comes under your authority and you hold him as though a resident alien, let him live by your side. That is as if to say, hold him up so that he will not fall and be in need. So the highest level is you create the opportunity for someone to become self-sustainable, for them to be able to no longer need the support of other people. And that, in other words, you are giving someone both the self-confidence and the skills and the resilience and everything that they need to be able to maintain themselves. That's the highest level. Second, the next lower level, seventh level, one level lower than this is one who gives tzedakah to the poor and does not know to whom he gives, and the poor person does not know from whom he receives. This is purely a mitzvah for its own sake, such as the chamber of secrets in the holy temple, for there the righteous would give in secret and leave, and the poor of good background would sustain themselves from it in secret. Very close to this is one who gives to the kuppah of tzedakah, but one should not contribute to the kuppah of tzedakah unless one is certain that the one who counts it is trustworthy and wise and behaves competently, as was Rabbi Hanania ben Tradion. Okay, so the next level is when you give anonymously and the person who receives it anonymously doesn't know from whom they are receiving that money. Okay, the next level down, one level lower, is one who gives tzedakah and the giver knows to whom he gives, but the poor person does not know from whom he takes. Such did the great sages who would go in secret and throw money onto the doorways of the poor. A method such as this one is a good way when the keepers of tzedakah do not behave competently. One level lower is when the poor person knows from whom he takes, but the giver does not know to whom he gives. Such was the way of the sages who would tie coins to their garments and would throw the bundle over their shoulder so the poor could come up behind them and take them without being embarrassed. Right? I love that image. The idea of people walking down the street with coins tied to their garments behind them and people just kind of coming up and pulling them off of their clothing. One level lower is to give to him with one's own hand before he can ask. One level lower is to give to him after he is asked. One level lower is to give him less than one should, but with kindness. One level lower is to give to him begrudgingly. Thoughts on those 8 levels of tzedakah? It's always good to be reminded of them. And there's some really interesting ones. I'm curious if I can bring them up again if there's one that you wanted to review. Where do you feel we as a society tend to be? And what are your thoughts on these 8 levels? Do you agree with them? Are they in an order that you appreciate and like? By the way, I forgot to add my source sheet here. So I'm going to do that just because, as always, we're never going to get through the whole thing. And that way you can look at these and review these 8 levels of tzedakah for all time. And over Shabbos. So I'm going to attach it here for you. Susan, I didn't know if your hand was up.
Okay. I think each one of them can be arguable, except the first. I think the highest level, helping someone become self-sufficient, is glowing. It's supernal because it can create a sense of self-worth in the person. It gives the person a means to support him or herself. And not be a strain in the community. Now, all the others, I think, the last one is not to give or to give grudgingly. All right, here you go. But I think some of the others, there can be some questionable things in there. Is it wrong for temples and other communities to put names of donors on? Now, there are a lot of people that are shaking their head, yes, it's wrong, but I don't know that it's wrong. I think that you can give donors a sense of, look, this is what I contributed to this group. Now, there are those that may not be able to afford it. They could also say, maybe one day I can afford it. And these people are doing that. I don't think it's wrong. I think it can provide inspiration for others and a sense of having contributed to a community for there. Now, not knowing to whom you give, in some respects, it's, when I give to an organization, I don't know the individuals that are in there, I mean, in the idea, friends of the idea. But you know, you're helping that group of people. You're not just helping one individual. And same for any charity cause. So, you know, sometimes it's this anonymity, I don't know, is always necessarily the benefit.
Great, thank you. By the way, I would clarify that none of these are necessarily deemed bad, right? In all of these, people are still giving tzedakah, right? So at the baseline, they were fulfilling the obligation of actually giving, even that lowest level where they're fetching as they give, right? They're still actually giving. So you're right that we can argue, and there are differences of opinions about naming opportunities. And again, that is listed as one of the levels. It doesn't mean it's a level that's a bad level. It's just Maimonides trying to, of course, create some kind of structure for us to understand, if we go back to this concept of elevation, how do we want to elevate our giving? And there are many ways of doing that. And people are drawn to different ways in which they want to give, and different ways in which we may be appropriate for the certain setting. Merle, then Rebecca, then Brad. And then
I was just gonna say that, I mean, I agree with what Susan said. A lot of these are arguable. I think a lot of it depends on the situation. The one place that's really important to me when I give that I think it needs to be anonymous big time is like a camp scholarship, for example, or a temple membership scholarship, or helping a family out. And mostly because I don't want to be at camp or at temple and have that family see me and be embarrassed that I gave for their need, or at camp for that matter. I think that's the only situation that I feel needs to be remain anonymous on all sides. Okay. For the benefit of the person receiving. Otherwise, you know, if somebody wants to put my name on a wall or however, I mean, a memorial plaque is a big donation. So when you put a memorial plaque on the wall, people are going to know, you know, who gave it, if that's how it's listed, and how much it costs. I don't have an issue with that. That's something I'm happy to do. But I just think where an individual or a family is involved, I think it needs to be anonymous on all sides to protect their, I can't think of the word, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Rebecca?
The one thing that he mentioned that bothers me is when someone has to put their hand out for a donation. You know, I live downtown Santa Monica. There's always someone that's asking for $1. And that's the same thing that goes to what Eric was talking about earlier, about all the donation letters that you get in the mail. It's too bad that it's just not part of our moral code, our moral fabric, that when we pay our taxes, this much has to go to a donation of your choice, to a nonprofit or something of your choice, so that people don't have to keep putting their hand out. It just grieves me.
Yeah, I mean that, yes. Thank you for sharing that. Eric, then Aviva, then Susan, then Panina.
This me, Eric?
Yep, you're the only one left. The other Eric left.
Oh yeah, what's a continuing problem is categories of neediness that we have to sort out. I mean, right now there's a giant thing on the ballot to put money to help people with mental illness. Mental illness is a whole world of neediness that we have to help, especially if we have mentally ill people who are relatives of us. And it's very, very difficult. There's all kinds of contradictions that we have to overcome and places. So, I mean, as somebody that is dealing with this with relatives, I am. It's what the idea of donation brings immediately to mind.
Great, thank you. Yes, and it's hard. I mean, to both your point and Rebecca's, there are so many different needs out there, right? And I go back to what it says in the beginning of the Torah portion. What our hearts, what so moves you, right? Because we are all going to be drawn to different kinds of things, and we both societally need to think about our priorities, and then individually, what what moves us? What do we care about? How are we making sure that we give tzedakah and our time and energy to things that matter to us, that we care about either personally or for our society? Because we can't do it all. That is for sure, because it is an overwhelming number of challenges that we face. Susan, then Aviva, then Penina.
So Merle's comment made me think of something back in a time. And I might be stoned for this, but we gave a scholarship to some Israeli students for camp. David Eshel was in charge, of the camp, and it made us feel really good. And then what he did is one camp session, he invited us to come out and to meet the Israeli counselors. And that was like, it just warmed my heart to see them as human beings, specifically people. I mean, we didn't give them a living, but we paid for their presence at camp. And so for me, that was memorable. And it warmed my heart. So yes, we could have also given if we hadn't been invited to meet them, and that just made it a warmer experience. So I'm saying it can be beneficial, and I think it probably was for them too, to see real life human American Jews. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, this is the wonderful thing about the various opinions about tzedakah, and what guides people, what moves them to give, right? For some people, it's the anonymity. For others, it's about the fact that they get to, as you just said, Susan, put a name to a concept and actually see a face and know that this is the embodiment of your support. Right. So, and I think, again, Maimonides and these levels are really just supposed to remind us that we don't have to just be stuck in one of those levels. We can give on a variety of different levels, depending on what it is that we are needing at the moment and what we are trying to help support. Oh, I forgot Brad. So Aviva, then Penina, then Brad. Oh, no, now you're muted. You were unmuted before, Aviva.
I think it's brilliant in the sense that it is catching everybody, every personality, and you find a place between 1 and 8 where it talks to you. And I think that's the brilliance of having 8. But again, it's a little bit like before. Everybody comes in and brings whatever they can, and to build the Mishkan. And here too, what you're doing again is building community. It is so incredibly smart, inclusive, effective. Bravo.
Great, thanks, Aviva. Penina, and then Brad.
Okay. I'm looking at it that everybody gave according to their own ability. There is a company in Israel till today that's called Bezalel, and they do artifact, and they sell it, and the company is vibrant, and it's still till today. And the person who was in charge of the part that was supposed to be art and beauty in the Bible, in the story that you're reading today, is Bezalel. So action sometimes could be also giving. It doesn't have to be money. Because when you do in action, even a teacher, it's a way of giving. The word rabbi, Rav, also comes from the word to be somebody who is, how would I say, much in knowledge. Okay, it has a combination of more, teacher, and Rav, also somebody who can give you a lot of information. So we have to look at that even then, the idea that some people did that craftsmanship, not necessarily tangible jewelry or money or coins, but their work of actually building it. It mentioned and given a big place, bigger than all the others, because till today you still have Bezalel as a company in Israel.
Yeah,
So
it's a
the
great point,
others,
Tina. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a great point. And if you think about what you're referring to, it wasn't just in the beginning of the portion that they had to
exactly,
give these things. It's also then all the craftsmen who played a different role.
exactly.
Every single
Exactly.
person.
And the name of the person that till today is the one who gave
Right.
the craftsmanship, not
Yeah.
the one who gave the
So
Jew-
people could give of their talents or their
Exactly.
resources, and it was a
Exactly. I was a
combination
teacher
of-
for 47 years, and I feel that every time that I walked into a classroom, I walked into a different world. I was
Yeah.
taken from cleaning house and taking care of my own kids. All of a sudden, I'm in charge of all these people that looked at you and like you came right straight from, heaven, and to make them feel comfortable of what they are and who they are. And the main thing is to instill a feeling of inclusion, that they belong, that they are one, even if their parents didn't light candles on Shabbat. But the kid wanted to, so he did it. And then I told him, you're a good Jew, because you did one thing, and you call yourself a Jew, you're a good Jew. That's it.
Thank you. All right, Brad.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Rabbi, I'm interested in the distinction that you would make between a gift and charity. I mean, when I give my wife a gift, that's not an act of charity. I mean, and I think in this Torah portion, we're dealing with gifts that are not acts of charity, where there is, again, to repeat myself, a sense of obligations that are entailed. So I'm wondering if you can clarify for me a distinction that you would make between a gift versus charity.
I would probably say it's similar to how you were defining it, actually, Brad. I think a gift does bring with it a sense, not necessarily an obligation of a return gift, but an obligation even of a recognition of that gift that's given, even if it's thank you, or even, I think charity or tzedakah is something given without an expectation of response, that no response is necessary in order for you to fulfill the obligation of tzedakah and charity. Whereas a gift, there is an expectation that either there's a pre-existing relationship and that the gift is the result of some pre-existing obligation between two people, or it's the desire to establish a relationship and a connection. And that the gift, therefore, is part of a bigger story almost. And I would say tzedakah or charity is one which could become something that's a longer term relationship, but really is the obligation of the giver to fulfill what is a key value in our tradition, which is to help support the world around us, without the expectation that we should be getting something in return. Now, I wouldn't say that we don't get that. I think built into giving tzedakah is a kind of fulfillment that we get. One of the passages, since I'm mentioning it, so much lower down here, all the way at the end, I think. Second, a folk saying states, and this is connected, Brad, to what we're talking about: a fool gives and a wise man takes. This refers to a person who gives tzedakah. A fool who gives tzedakah thinks he is giving, while a wise man who gives realizes that he is taking. He is the one who benefits most by his action. So it's actually, by giving, we are receiving. It's actually, in a way, a positively selfish act of giving, that there is a fulfillment, and that we shouldn't shy away from the fact that maybe the difference is that tzedakah is the gift that we are giving ourselves, more so than a gift, which is really trying to give something to someone else. That tzedakah at the very core is supposed to give us the gift of both feeling a part of something bigger and feeling a sense of accomplishment and obligation. And again, going back to that value in our tradition of obligation to something bigger than ourselves. So that would be my answer, Brad. Okay, let's keep going. We'll go through some of these. Trying to think. Okay. A little later, a couple verses later, when it's talking about the tabernacle itself, overlay it with pure gold, overlay it inside and out, and make upon it a gold molding round about. It's talking about the tabernacle. Rava in the Talmud reads this symbolically and likens each person to the ark. Figuratively speaking, we are supposed to produce our personal gold inside and out as well. This might mean taking what is in our heart on our inside and giving it to others on the outside, right? So I like this idea, the idea that every single one of us is a portable sanctuary, right? That we, number one, we are made in the image of God. Number two, that your body is a sanctuary, that your body is on loan from God, that we are the embodiment of something holy and special. Not only how we, therefore, how we should treat ourselves, how we need to care for ourselves, but how our inside needs to match our outside and vice versa. But also that there is this idea that the gold, the richness of our potential inside, we have an obligation to take our potential, the rich elements of who makes us who we are, and to give that to the world. That's an important thing. In other words, the gold for the sanctuary and the Mishkan was not just on the inside. It was not just for those who had the benefit of going inside the sanctuary and dwelling amongst God to see that beauty. It also had to be on the outside. Everyone had to be exposed to the potential and the beauty of that sanctuary space. How can we imagine that every single one of us has that opportunity to be able to bring our brilliance, our creativity, our richness to the world around us and not just keep it for ourselves? So any thoughts on that one? Okay, we're about to be out of time. So let me go down. Again, we're not going to get to all of this, so you have time over Shabbat. A certain Hasid came to the Rebbe of Gustinin and told him of how bitter his life was. He had gone bankrupt and owed a great deal of money, which was unable to repay. At the end of their meeting, the man handed the Rebbe the customary pidyon, a gift of money to be used by the Rebbe as he saw fit. The Rebbe refused to accept the money from him and told him that a person is first required to pay off all his debts before he may give gifts. One has no right to give tzedakah at the expense of others. So this is just another side. This, we don't have time for it, gets into a whole discussion about to whom should we accept tzedakah. There may be people who want to give tzedakah, but whether or not it's appropriate for us to accept it. If they haven't paid off, if they owe money. Again, we could get into a whole discussion about morals and ethical behavior, right? But our tradition does recognize the challenges that you don't just accept the money per se, according to this rabbinic teaching. This is 18th century, 19th century. But the moral compass of the person giving is actually a key piece of whether or not we accept that tzedakah. So that comes into play in all kinds of ways in today's world. Again, not enough time for us to get into it. So that's the cliffhanger for you to discuss at your Shabbat tables this weekend. Should we accept money in order to benefit our institutions, regardless of who's giving that money? If not, what are the limitations and how do you draw that line between when we should accept tzedakah and gifts in order to support things that we really care about, and when should we not, even at the expense, so to speak, of the benefits of the causes that we care about? So with that, we're out of time. Shabbat shalom to all of you.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you
Shabbat
very much.
shalom.
Shabbat
all of you.
shalom. Thank you.
Great to see all of you. Have a wonderful Shabbat.
Nice
You
to
too.
stay with you, Rabbi.
Bye.
Bye.